Thank you all for being here. It's even over here, almost night. It's 22:37. I already did a live stream today at the beach, Scheveningen. And when I came home, I took a long nap. That's why I'm awake. I just woke up 10 minutes ago. So right now, I decided, what can I do for the next few hours? I'm still awake. I'll go to sleep later on so I can wake up and go to work tomorrow. But right now, I have some hours awake. So I thought, let me do another live stream. And I was checking which topic should I talk about. Now, I already told you I'll be checking cases, criminal cases, or mysterious case or cases don't add up. And I remembered I did a few videos, I believe also two live streams about the Kremers and the Froon case, those two Dutch women, one 21 years old, other 22 years old, that disappeared in Panama. So I thought, okay, I don't want to continue talking about the case over and over again because there are people on the internet who keep talking about the case for years. I believe Juan Pereira Imusue, this Spanish guy from the south of the Netherlands, he made over 90 videos about the case since, I believe, 2015. Now, I'm not doing that. By the way, his videos are quite good, so I recommend you look at his videos because he did some in-depth research into it. There are more people, I believe, Backpackers Coach. I believe the YouTube channel is called the Backpacker Coach, also talks about the case. Now, what I do is from time to time, I would reflect on the case and reflect on what I've noticed about the case and see if I missed something. So I check multiple cases from time to time. It's just that the Chris Kremers on the front case is more popular and more viewed out there. Now, first thing first, I do not aim to solve this case over here. Okay, I just want to point out certain things to you that others don't notice. Well, I see Tammy's here, Joanna's here, anyone else that's here, please let me know in the live chat, please. And hit the like button, please. Thank you very much. All right. What I'm going to do is going to share my screen now with you. Um, Hold on. Let's see if this works well. All right. Can you all see it? Let me remove myself out of the picture. This is a blog by a French couple. As you can see, the date of this post is the 14th of April 2014. All right. Now, in this, it's in French. I'm not going to read French here to you. And the thing about me is I can understand French when I'm reading it. So someone mentioned this, so I thought, let me do my own research and look for it myself. And indeed, this French couple mentioned that when they wanted to hike the Pianista Trail there in Panama, there were locals telling them that there was a problem, namely that there were two Dutch people around 23 years old. Well, they got the age wrong, but who cares? That allegedly got lost for 4 days. But there were also people that heard two screams from them. So the locals heard screams of two women and also saw some men rushing over there. Okay, this is a blog post. Um, you can see the link over here. You can check it out yourself. Maybe your French is even better than mine. What I'm pointing out here is that when you look at this case, a lot of facts have been omitted from mainstream media. A lot of eyewitness testimonies that don't match the mainstream media narrative were also left out. So I began to think, hold on a minute. Mainstream media uses voodoo and juju. They don't openly say it, but that's what mainstream media is using. White supremacy itself runs through corporate voodoo. I already explained this in another live stream called Corporate Voodoo. So I began to consider what if The media story of them getting lost and facing an accident. What if this itself was a forget spell? Now you may ask yourself, Rashid, what is a forget spell? Now let me explain to you. In voodoo as well as in juju, you have this type of spell binding called the forget spell or memory purge spell or whatever term that's preferred locally. It comes down to the following. If a recent event took place that kind of disturbed the public and you want the public to quote unquote forget what happened, now listen, it's impossible to make people forget things. It's impossible to use a spell to wipe out the memories of someone's brain. You can't do that. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. Let's that be clear. But what you can do is put a psychic layer in someone's mind so that they won't retrieve the memory. So let me get it straight. Okay, let me tell you this in a better way. You cannot do a spell to erase memories from someone's mind, and you can't come up with a spell to wipe clean someone's brain. It doesn't exist. Not even in hypnotism is this possible. In hypnotism, they try to rewire your brain through therapy or through rituals because it can't actually erase the effect that was there on your brain. In a similar way, when it comes to black magic or witchcraft, it is not possible to make someone forget something. What you do is you put a psychic layer around someone's memory so that their mind will be distracted by this psychic layer. And this distraction works as if they've forgotten about it. They haven't forgotten about it, at least consciously, they can't retrieve the memory, but their bodies will still react to it. Let me give an example of how a forget spell would work. Let's say now that so a guy was cheating on his wife, and there were some colleagues that came in and catched him having sex with the prostitute. Now, those colleagues are going to talk about what they saw, naming that, for example, Jeffrey cheated on his wife. Now, Jeffrey doesn't want this to come out. So, the moment he figured out, oh dear, my colleagues caught me, very quickly, before the day ends, because the colleagues are at work, remember, they're about to go home, he does this forget spell. He triggers the Earth's energy field around him, and he triggers um, some low frequency in the building. And because it's low frequency, people feel tired. And because they feel tired, their brains get distracted. And distraction of the brains cause a type of mental fog. And this mental fog becomes the psychic shield. So when those coworkers go home, they kind of can't remember what happened at work. Now, next day, when they see Jeffrey, who cheated on his wife, they will feel a bit uncomfortable with him because the memory is not erased, but it's dormant. So the memory is covered by this psychic shield that has been triggered by this low frequency. So the coworkers for years cannot remember what happened that single day, but they feel uncomfortable about a certain day, but they can't figure out why am I uncomfortable about it. Another way can be, let's say you have a satanic cult, and in a satanic cult, they do child molestation as a ritual for the demons. Now, you don't want the child to grow up remembering what his or her own relatives did to him or her. So what you do is you do a forget spell. Remember, the child's already traumatized. You do a forget spell a few times on the child while he's growing up or while she's growing up. So when they're adults, it seems as if they have holes in their memory. That's why sometimes you will find adults, and when you talk about them when they were 10 years old, they can remember specific days of things happening when they were 10 years old. But then there are months in their memory of when they were 10 years old that they simply cannot remember. They simply, no matter how much they try, they can't retrieve the memories of that time. Or it can be, for example, that this way mainstream media can work, it can be that there was this big scandal that came out, namely that there were child molesters released from prison prematurely because because they had a deal with some investigators. Let's say a scandal like that came out. Now, what the elite can do is that they can put a false flag operation, whether something similar to 9/11 or a local attack or whatever, and the public get shocked by this low vibration caused by this traumatic event is staged. Staged doesn't mean it's fake. It can mean that actual victims to actually became victims, but the event is staged to cause this low frequency, and this low frequency causes people to develop a mental fog around that area. So let's say indeed there's a sex crime that happened in a community that shocked a lot of people, but then you had a terrorist attack that happened. Now 5 years later, ask the people about that year, whether it's 2016 or 2020, whatever, or nine, or whatever year it is that you ask them about. It can be you can get newspaper articles talking about a sex scandal. You have many newspaper articles about it, even documentaries. But talk to the common public of that same area, and it's like they can't remember that this ever took place. Now, that's what I mean. There's a psychic shield that's developed around their mind. So the memory cannot be accessed. It's a forget spell. Now, a forget spell is not permanent. Its effect will fade away after around 5 years, something like that. They need to renew it. Now, but the thing about the forget spell is the reason why its effect's a bit longer because the forget spell is a layer you trigger on someone. And because this is a layer that people maintain themselves, it lasts a bit longer because naturally spells only last between 2 to 3 years. A forget spell can last a bit longer because it's the individual itself that maintains the psychic layer without them being aware of it. Now, if it's an incident that happened 4 years ago and forget spell lasts for 5 years, eventually people don't think that what happened 5 years ago is relevant anymore, so they just don't even bother with it. So human behavior can make a forget spell last for 10 years or maybe 15 years. For example, if there was a sex scandal that happened in, let's say, in the year 2000, and there was a forget spell was placed in 2001, well, in 2008, the forget spell already played out, already lost effect, but the public doesn't think that what happened in 2000 is relevant anymore. So people just don't consider think about things from the past anymore. So but there are going to be people who think, you know what happened in 2000? I feel like something happened that I don't remember. So a forget spell is when you trigger a psychic layer around someone so they can't access a memory. The memory is there, but they can't access it. And this is more common than you realize. So when I look at the Kris Kremers on the Froon case, they also are called Kris Lisanne online. Everything about this case points out that mainstream media, together with other actors involved, or factors, I mean, conducted a forget spell on the Dutch public. Because, for example, let me, okay, does this work? Ah, yeah, it works. Let me share the screen again. Okay, yes, it's working. Can you all see the screen? Ah, yes, finally you can see it. This is an article from April 23rd, 2014. Dutch police hint at criminal activity in women's disappearance. Okay. Two Dutch women who disappeared earlier this month in Panama are unlikely to have gotten lost in the mountainous region, Dutch police said on Tuesday, raising the possibility 3 weeks into the research that two may have been the victims of a crime. Panamanian authorities launched a widespread search for the women, but found no sign of two would-be volunteers. Now hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. So the authorities, both in the Netherlands and Panama, said it's very unlikely they got lost. Also based on the forensic evidence that the area is not an area you get lost in easily. Let me look at another article. This one is from April 15th, 2014, and it was updated in 2016. It says that the women had contact with Dutch men. They were hanging around with Dutch men over there. Okay, they it's in Dutch. I won't read it for you. The men were not suspects, but were one of few who lost. There were some of the people who lost seen them. So in any police investigation, if you're the lost individual or one of the lost people that saw the missing persons, you are a person of interest. Okay. Now, suddenly, later on, it turned into an accident. Now, one thing I want to point out to you is that you can't change a story like that out of the blue. It's going to catch people's attention thinking, what? I mean, if something is an accident, it's quite clear it's an accident. You can clearly see how it could have gone wrong. But if there's so many indications that there's more going on, you can't first say, man, there's more going on, we're on it, and then say, oh, we just came to a conclusion, it's an accident, just forget about it. The thing about this case is that the forget spell that mainstream media and the other involved factors wanted to impute on the Dutch public, it worked on the Dutch public. But as with any spell, there's side effects. And one side effect was it backfired internationally. Internationally, a lot of people begin to think, hold on a minute. Let's talk about the backpack, please. I'm not going into all the factors in this case. Let's look at the backpack. How can you have an accident in a jungle and your body is scattered into place because they didn't find the skeletons of those, they didn't find the corpse of those women in one location. They found a piece of bone over here, a piece of bone over there, and they found three other remains from three other people who not have been identified to this day. How can you find a little piece of bone here, a little piece of bone there? How would that work? And when the backpack was found, it was found in a good condition, and the content of the backpack was not affected by water, nor the weather, nor the heat. If there was a backpack that was kind of carried away by the current, carried away by the river, I expect the backpack to be soaking wet. I expect the content to be completely ruined. I don't expect to see a clean, nice backpack handed over by indigenous people. Some say, but Rashid, the lady that found the backpack washed the backpack and then handed over. Why would you wash a backpack you just find in the jungle? Come on now. Oh, you also found the camera in the backpack. How come the camera was still okay and not soaking wet and whatever? So that backpack story was a nail in the coffin that this is a setup. But I began to think, hold on a minute, why did they come up with this backpack story if it doesn't fit the narrative of them getting lost, having an accident? This is how it goes in voodoo and juju. Voodoo and juju are methods of spell binding. Voodoo is the highest. Then you have juju. Now, in voodoo and juju, when you want to put this forget spell on someone or on a population, you cannot actually erase the memory. You have to replace it by suggesting something else. So a forget spell is a suggestion, but the suggestion can only work if you're showing it's a suggestion. So it goes like this. If you want to put a forget spell on someone, let's say, for example, you cheated on your wife and some people catch you and you want to do a spell very quickly, you have to suggest with your, you have to show with your behavior what actually happened while you suggest something else. So let's say that that woman you cheated on, you cheated with, people see her. Now, their own memory, their own mind and their brain will be triggered when they see the woman because the memory is there. But then you suggest, see the lady over there. We're some good friends. I just gave her a consultation for a marriage. That's a suggestion, and this suggestion masks the real memory that they have of seeing you cheating with her. So you don't deny that the woman was there. You just suggest a different interpretation for what really was going on. Because if you deny that the woman was even there, there will be a direct conflict with the memory inside the human being. And remember, you can't erase the memory in the human being. You can't unsee or unhear what you've seen or heard. You can only trigger a psychic shield. And the way to trigger a psychic shield is by imposing a suggestion. So in this case, in the case of Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon, they have to show that it's a setup while telling you it's not a setup. And by them showing you one thing but suggesting another, they get you confused. Because remember, they are the authorities. So you suspect the authorities to do their best. So because you have this belief that the authorities will do their best, for you to be unlikely, the authorities would hoax you or con you or scam you. So because you have this perception of the authorities as they are reliable, now when it's shown to you that they're doing a setup, you're going to be thinking, no, 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 it can't be true. No, 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 the Panamanian authorities wouldn't do that. I mean, it would make themselves look bad. It's not in their interest to do this. And why would the Dutch authorities get along with this? Why would so? Because you have this expectation that authorities must be reliable, because for the most part, your daily life depends on you believing they're reliable. When it's shown in your face that you're being tricked, that's a shock for you that you don't want to deal with. And that's how the psychic shield is developed. So when then they say it's an accident, you feel relief, thinking, you see, and the authorities are not in on this. They're not in on this. So the psychic shield is triggered by showing something, but at the same time suggests something opposite, the opposite. And the opposite thing you suggest is feels more pleasant than the thing you show. So the thing you show must be horrible, and then what you suggest must be in harmony with the escape the public wants. That's how the forget spell works, and that is how it worked in this case. They could do more spells at the same time, but when it comes to mainstream media doing forget spell on the public, they must be in harmony. It can't be that CNBC says one thing and Fox News says another. It can't be, for example, in the Netherlands that RTL News is saying one thing and the West saying something else. So if there's a forget spell about an event, all mainstream media outlets must collaborate together and be on code on what they say. Because if one media outlet says one thing and the other says another thing, the spell won't work. You cannot do this spell ignorantly. You have to be aware of how the human mind operates. You have to be aware about energy fields. You have to be aware of these things so that you can trigger this, because a forget spell is something you trigger in people. In many cold cases, they do forget spells too. Again, I'm not saying that all the journalists at those media corporations, they're corporations, remember. I'm not saying all of them are involved. I'm saying that those decision makers by the scenes, they're the ones in on it. But always remember, a forget spell does not erase the memory. It's impossible to erase a memory. You have to trigger a suggestion that diverts you away. Let me give another. Let me. This is how you can compare it. Let's say you go on Amazon and you type in the name of a product. Let's say you are in France, and in France, this product is outlawed. So what they can do is that the French department of Amazon can put a retrace code in the Amazon search engine. So that anytime someone types in the name of a certain product, they are redirected to another search result. Now, that product can be purchased on Amazon. They didn't delete, they removed the product. Because if they would remove the product, you have to explain why. But if you want to shadow ban someone, whether it's an author, whether it's the product from a company, the most effective way is not to actually censor them by banning them, because that will look bad on you. You just put a retrace in the search engine so that anytime you type in the product, you get other search results. And by doing that, people cannot access the product on Amazon, even though the product is there for sale. But if the public can't access the product, they can't purchase it. And that's how you successfully hinder the product from being seen. So retracing search results, that's something that has that is done by Google, it's done by Bing search, it's done by multiple search engines. It's even done by certain companies that don't want certain products and people to get some views. It's even done when it comes, for example, to media articles we don't want you to see. So censorship can backfire. So another way is to retrace search results. Because think about it, if you want to look for something but you can't find it, then you're not aware it's there. That's how you can hinder the effectiveness of someone. For example, if they shadow ban a certain artist, so you can't find the music on YouTube or on Spotify or whatever, they haven't actually censored this artist. So the artist can have said, "You guys censored me," but in their search engine, in the source code, they put a retrace. Well, this is how a forget spell is. It's a psychic retrace, so that the actual memory remains dormant, so that anytime someone mentions something, you think about what the retrace to. For example, if someone's name is John Williams, and type in John Williams in Amazon, and John Williams has 10 movies. But let's say John Williams is a controversial political figure, and let's say the USA government doesn't want people to see John Williams content. If they um, actually ban John Williams, they have to explain to the public why they're banning him, and that's going to work out bad. So the government may tell Amazon and YouTube and all, anytime to put a retrace in their search engine, so that anytime people look for the 10 movies of Williams, they get the other search results that don't add up. But look at this: if there's a retrace on someone to shadow ban them, you will get results that have nothing to do with what you're looking for. That is the red flag that someone tries to hide this individual. Well, what they do with the internet and with search engines, that's the right from the paranormal. A forget spell is a retrace, a psychic retrace. So that is why a lot of people outside the Netherlands can't let this case go, because they realize, come on, this is way too obvious, this is off. And here's the thing: those people that did this forget spell, they forgot that the rest of the world was watching too. Because the United States did not do a forget spell on the Americans. In Costa Rica there was no forget spell done in this case. If this case only had attention in the Netherlands, then it would be sufficient to a forget spell only in the Netherlands. But this case had international attention. So they have to do a worldwide forget spell. That will be quite costly, will be quite intense and exhausting. Because such spells can be exhausting when you have to cover a big public. So only with the Netherlands and some parts of Panama did this forget spell. The rest of the world was not subjected to this spell, so the rest of the world could still see clearly this is off. So now you know that forget spells exist if you didn't already, and forget spells are used on you, often without you being aware of it. Now, I don't intend to make this live stream that long because remember, I already had the several hours of sleep, so I'll be awake for the next few hours. So I'm going to do some telephone fellowship soon also because some of the believers in the United States are now awake. Just realize this. This case of those two Dutch women, they used a forget spell. They put a psychic retrace in the minds of many people, especially Dutch people, so that when they hear about the case, their mind automatically goes towards, oh, it's an accident. I've spoken to someone lately who told me, Rashid, I do think it's an accident that what happened to them, especially if you're in the jungle and you're upset, you can get hysterical, but still they haven't found much of their remains. So the individual was saying without being aware of it, this can't be an accident, but my mind can only think it's an accident. So without being aware of it, they're showing that someone put a spell on them and the spell affected them to such a way that they couldn't think properly about the case. Oh, and you know where they did forget spells also? A lot during Nazi Germany. And after Nazi Germany, it has been that called high ranking forget spells have become dominant in the world. It wouldn't surprise me if forget spells are being done right now so that people can forget some of the atrocities that have been happening for the past 2 years. But that's a whole nother topic. Look, once you are aware that forget spells exist, now you're more aware that you can be deformed by the influence of society. So understand this. It can be that you went through something traumatic due to community's neglect. But the people who witness you going through that thing can't remember, they can't retrieve the memory of what happened to you. Why? Because they were subject to forget spell to see you as the bad guy or the bad woman. And this is something a lot of narcissists out there have pagan knowledge. A lot of narcissists do this. For example, you can have an ex-husband who was a narcissist, and he openly mistreated you, yet everyone sees you as the bad woman. Even though people have seen and witnessed him mistreating you, and there's no excuse for his behavior, people still believe you are to blame. That is because the public wants to have relief. And the public longing for relief is already a distortion mentally. So the narcissist could easily do a forget spell on those people, and it worked because they want relief to begin with. It's extremely hard to do a forget spell on a believer. Now, it can work on a believer if a believer is not renewed in his or her mind. But a believer walking by faith is impossible to put a forget spell on them. You cannot put a forget spell on a believer walking by faith. It cannot happen. And that's why society wants to limit the influence of believers as much as possible. Look, some worldlings can see through a forget spell because there's always going to be a few people who are going to realize, this is a bit weird. But the majority of people, like 99% of people, will just fall for it because this relief seeking is a common thing in the world. So, how do you reverse a forget spell? Look, if forget spell happened recently, then you feel that something is missing. You feel like in your history something is missing, or you feel that something's missing over here. That feeling something's missing, that is the actual memory that's dormant. So your your inner radar points, your intuition points out something's missing. What you do then is you calm down, you pray, you fast, you remain in a joyful and happy mood, and little by little, the psychic layer breaks down. And with the psychic layer breaking down, suddenly you begin to remember the real event. And you're going to think, what? And look at this. Your human mind itself generates a bubble when something's too traumatic. But that's not a psychic retrace. Your human mind has a natural bubble it develops around the traumatic memory, so you're not overwhelmed by it. That's something that's human. Something happens with your human mind. But a forget spell is a counterfeit of that. A forget spell is really when you retrace someone's mind towards an outcome that didn't actually happen. So that is why sometimes the police will interrogate people over and over again because a forget spell or the psychic retrace can also be broken down completely if you're confronted with a subject over and over and over again. That's why sometimes in cold cases, when the detectives really want a case to be solved, they keep exposing you to the case over and over and over again. And eventually, some of the people from the past will remember, hey, 20 years ago, Johnny that went missing, I remember now that Johnny was seen with two men at a car. The forget spell is reversed. Now look, forget spells, again, you have the natural human bubble that your mind develops if something was traumatic for you. Sometimes the trauma was so intense that you later have developed PTSD. I went through that. Well, then you have to process all the shocks. But a forget spell is a retrace. So a forget spell is a redirection of the mind, and the individual just can't figure out why they're uncomfortable. Now, it's not just through mainstream media forget spells are done. Forget spells can also be done by a local church. Now, can there be a good reason to do a forget spell? Now, some pagans who have good intentions think that forget spells can be handy just to make sure there's peace in the community. Now, their motives can be good. They can have good intentions, but a forget spell has side effects on those it's subjected onto. The side effects can be that they develop mental disorders over the long time, over in the long run. They can develop trust issues. They can develop self-doubt, and because they can also develop physical disorders if people keep doubting themselves. So a forget spell always has side effects on those it has been used upon. Now, some people, some pagans use forget spells just to make sure there's peace in the community so that people don't develop bitterness or anger. Now, forget spells are effective in retracing people's minds. So people won't forget, for example, that their parents neglected them. They now forget, they won't remember how their parents neglected them. They won't remember how people did them dirty. So a forget spell can divert someone's mind away from facing how dirty they were done. But here's the thing, because they don't face how they were neglected and what they've been through, they can never process it. So someone subjected to forget spell, yes, they will not be stuck in the shock, but that's a short-term effect. The long-term effect is they can't process the past. And because they can't process the past, they become long-term dysfunctional, and this long-term dysfunction can be used by evil spirits. So for guest spells, I can understand some pagans think, okay, this is the best way to maintain peace in the community. I understand you want peace in the community, but for you to have peace in the community, you need Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace. Any other type of peace you try to invoke the community will be a cheap counterfeit that will backfire. So forget spells are the way pagans want to maintain ease in their communities, and it works on the short term. Cold cases are a type of forget spell that they put on the masses too. And it works, but only on the short term. Now, if you think that you were affected by a forget spell, Don't panic. Don't freak out. Don't become paranoid and all of that. Just remain calm. Be at peace. If you want for yourself, write down what you think is missing. Talk to other people about it. Do some therapy or counseling if you think you need it. This is nothing shameful about that. And little by little, the retrace fades away. But be prepared to deal with the actual facts when they appear. And the reason why forget spells often lingers because people have no interest in realizing that they've been misdirected. They have no interest in facing this because it's going to be too shocking, too overwhelming, so they prefer to look away. So the looking away, the turn the blind eye, that behavior in human beings extends the effect of the forget spell, even if the forget spell has played out already. Forget spells tend to last long because people don't want to look into it. All right. So it's not only the Kris Kremers, it's on the Froon case. This happens a lot. So now you know this case, they want you to forget about it. They don't want you to look into what really happened because once you find out what really happened, it will make both the Netherlands, it will make the Netherlands look bad. And it will also make Panama look bad. Now, Panama looks bad anyway because often crime happens towards tourists over there. Everyone knows that. I'm not going to throw out speculation out there, but the reason this case was subject to a forget spell is because there's some public interest that is being protected. Same with Annie Jensen case. This case of this Swedish woman that ended up dying in Scotland, and it said suicide. Well, evidence shows there's something else. And even the Swedish government said we want to release the postmortem pictures because they may harm the public interest and the international relation of Sweden. Wow. So it happens that the authorities come in. They want to make the public, quote unquote, forget about something. Now, the authorities know they can't actually make people forget things, they can only retrace them. Let me say, mainstream entertainment also serves as a tool in the forget spells. It can be, for example, that there are many people losing their jobs. But at the same time, everyone keeps talking about the ads of Kim Kardashian. Why is Kim Kardashian's ass so in the media all the time? Kim Kardashian as in the media as a tool to redirect or retrace people away from what's actually going on right now. So not all entertainment, but mainstream entertainment can often be used as a tool in forget spells. People say, is it like an hypnosis? In hypnosis, you go to the root of something on a psychic level. In a forget spell, you retrace things on a psychic level. That's different. You you actually redirect it to somewhere else. All right. How long is this? I've been on here almost 50 minutes. Well, thank you all for being here. This live stream is quite short, I know. I'm going to Joanna and Ruth. You both have Telegram. I see. I'm trying to call you both in the same call to talk about this a bit further. For the rest of you, thank you for being here, and let this case of these two women be a lesson to you. Just because you are told it's an accident doesn't mean it is an accident. Okay? But there are more cases out there where this forget spell thing has been applied. But anyway, don't let this forget spell thing shock you because it's just those are just things happening in the world. Well, I'm not saying that everyone who did a forget spell is a bad individual. Some people do forget spells because they have good intentions, but they just don't realize that forget spells can backfire. So please never do forget spells. I don't care what the short-term benefit will be. In the long run, it's not worth it. There are people with good hearts doing forget spells or participating because think it's the right thing. Well, I'm telling you, don't do it because it's going to backfire. Well, that's it for now. Thank you all for being here. If you want to ask questions, please ask them now. If you have to leave, you can leave. I'll be on the phone. Probably walking outside also because it's quite warm still. If you have questions about this topic, please ask them right now. Thank you very much. Mhm. Mhm. I'll wait till I get some questions. Wait for a minute. Is a cliffhanger case similar to a forget spell? A cliffhanger case can just be that the case is complicated, therefore people keep remembering it. But a cliffhanger case can be a forget spell in itself. That is when they leave out certain facts, such your mind keeps thinking this doesn't add up, doesn't end up. Then it's a forget spell. All right. Mm. All right. Didn't get any more questions. Thank you for being here. Keep it with Christ. And see you next time. Be at peace.